We're calling to order the City of Kingman Municipal Utilities Commission on Thursday, August 26, 2021. First order of business is call to order and roll call.
Chairman Scheffler,
Here.
Vice Chairman Van Oosting,
Here.
Commissioner DeMitt, Commissioner Orr, Commissioner Van Zant,
Here.
Commissioner Retberg, Commissioner Yarish. We have a quorum.
Okay, next item, if we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. For hybrid meeting, in-person attendance, call to participation, written comments accepted. First thing on here would be in person, if anybody's got anything to say or bring before the board. The next thing would be any call-ins. Do we have anybody on the phone?
No, sir.
Next thing is any written comments. Anybody send any correspondences?
No.
Okay. All right, number 2, new businesses. Review and recommendation to council, draft report of water, wastewater capacity fees.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. The water and wastewater for new development, those users have been charged water meter connection fees and sewer investment fees for many, 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 many years. Additionally, those fees have remained at the same level for also many years. It's standard practice to review your fees on somewhat of a periodic basis, 3 to 5 years, but not only looking at those fees, but looking at the methodology behind those fees as growth trends change, construction costs change, which ultimately then make priorities change. So in November of 2019, we hired Tischler Bice to perform a sewer investment fee, also known as wastewater development fees. And also, shortly thereafter, we asked them to perform a water meter connection fee study. So we have been working on that for quite some time, and tonight is a review and overview of the draft fee report that was included in the agenda this evening. And in it includes staff's and Tischler Bice's recommendation on the fee methodology to use going forward, as well as the fees to assess going forward. So I am going to hand this over to Ben Griffin, who did all of the work on the report and the presentation this evening. And then as questions arise, we can both tag team any of those answers. Ben?
Thanks, Tina. And commissioners, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'm in a hotel in Phoenix, so I'm not sure how strong the Wi-Fi is. So if anyone's having trouble hearing me, just let me know. I can try and speak louder. Also, if you have questions at any point in the presentation, feel free to interrupt. We can make this, pretty informal. That way, really, it just allows you to ask questions and make sure that everyone's comfortable moving forward. All right. First, we're going to go over some capacity fee basics, just so everyone understands what we can and cannot include as a capacity fee. Then we'll look at the draft water and wastewater capacity fees, look at a fee summary, and then discuss the potential adoption timeline. Why capacity fees? Well, your current grandfathered wastewater development fees, they're based on debt repayment only. There are no other components. Things like, interceptors that you're going to need. You can't fund that with your existing development fees. We want to stay in compliance with Arizona law. And so to serve the water and wastewater needs of county customers, you can't do that under the new development fee statute. So, we've looked at transitioning you from wastewater development fees and then water connection fees into just a combined, capacity fee ordinance. So, the big difference between a capacity fee and a development fee is that, it's going to allow you to collect fees outside of the city limits. So those county customers who are connecting to the system, you can continue to assess them a fee under the capacity fee ordinance. Also, there's just a much shorter adoption period. So with development fees, it's 235 days from start to finish. With the capacity fees, you advertise or you adopt a notice of intention, which I believe is scheduled for September. Then you advertise your report at least 30 days before that public hearing, and then you can adopt the capacity fees at a public hearing, at 60 days after you've adopted the notice of intention, and then the fees go into effect 30 days later. Now, this doesn't mean that this was a shorter process than the development fees, because we actually, we've been working on this for as long as we've been working on the development fees, and going, a lot of back and forth. So, we've really vetted a lot of these assumptions. Stakeholders have seen this. So again, the adoption process is shorter than development fees, but we have been working on this for well over a year. And then, because the requirements are different through state legislation than the development fees, we still recommend that you, treat it, on your books as a development fee. So, still put it in a separate fund. Make sure that you're not, intermingling those capacity fee funds with any other, general fund or something like that. Definitely keep those separate. And then, we still use the same development fee level of service requirements. So again, we're calculating this as a development fee, but because you're serving customers outside the city limits, we're adopting it as a capacity fee. So are there any questions related to that?
I'm not sure this is the time to ask this or not, but tell you the truth, I've been kind of looking at this, and this is a way to generate money, the same thing as far as the impact fees and all the reports and everything that we had on that. My question is, Tina, after you presented everything to us for the budget, and we went through all of the budget and approved capital improvements, operating expenses, and everything else that we needed for these two departments, it's easy to see that we could go ahead and increase fees here, and it's how we could do it. But what are they for?
So Chairman, that's exactly what Ben's going to review with you, is exactly what those fees are for. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question. So we'll talk about what we can and cannot include in this. So, we're looking at growth-related capital infrastructure. So, growth is the very first thing. We want to make sure that anything we include is needed to serve future development. So, as long as it is a capital improvement that is meant to serve new development, then we can include it. Anything with maintenance and repairs, so replacing sewer lines or water lines, that's something that we cannot include as part of the capacity fee. That needs to be, covered with, your water or sewer rates by existing and future customers, because that's maintenance and repair. You can't fix an existing deficiency with a development fee or capacity fee unless there's some sort of outside funding plan. And then, if there's excess capacity in your existing facilities, then definitely you can, use your fees to, buy into that excess capacity. And actually, that's what we're doing with the wastewater treatment component of this. We're saying, hey, we've got, excess capacity in this system, and we have debt. So we want to have future development buy into that excess capacity. And, that is an acceptable use of your capacity fees. So we want to talk about three methodologies. And we really look at these as points in time, so past, present, future. So past, the cost recovery or buy-in methodology. Essentially, future development is buying into that excess capacity. So I just gave the example of the wastewater treatment facilities. You have excess capacity, growth needs that capacity, so you can buy into that. So we call that, a buy-in or cost recovery methodology. When we look at the present, incremental expansion, where we just say, hey, whatever we have today, we want to maintain that. It's easier with non-utilities, to give an example. So, park acres per person or police vehicles per person. Essentially, whatever you have today, you just want to maintain that level of service going forward. Doesn't work as easily with, water and sewer. So you don't really see that incremental methodology as often. And then finally, looking to the future or a plan-based, you basically say, hey, this is what we need to build over the next 10 years to serve future development. So what is their share of that? So actually, they're in some of the water infrastructure, you'll see where we've said, okay, this is what we need to build. This is the growth share, so we can charge that in the fee, and this is existing development share. So essentially, going in and upsizing some lines or something where existing development is going to receive a benefit from this. So we want to make sure that we're not putting all of it on the backs of future development. So we just split it out and say, okay, this is growth share, this is future development, or this is existing development share. So any questions on the methodologies before we move into the actual fee components? Okay. Oh, sorry, credits. We look at 3 types of credits, site specific. So if a developer came in and built some of the interceptors that we have planned, they would receive a credit for that. They basically should not pay twice. So if they build it, they just don't pay that component of the fee. Debt service, you'll see this with the wastewater treatment facilities, because you're using rates to retire debt. We want to make sure that future development isn't charged once through the capacity fee and then once through the wastewater rates to retire that same debt. So we include a credit for that future debt service. And then if you had any dedicated, property tax or local sales tax, something like that, that was going to a specific improvement, we would need to do a credit for that. But you don't have anything like that. So really, it's just going to be the debt service credit that that you'll see for a credit in these proposed fees. All right, so we'll start off with water. So what we're doing here is we're saying, all right, we want to charge everyone proportionately to the demand for water. And so looking at your master plan, the average residential customer demands 206 gallons of water per day on the average day. Well, you're sizing your water infrastructure based on max day demand. So what we want to do is apply a peaking factor that's also outlined in your master plan that says, okay, well, if we're using 206 gallons per average day, but we're building infrastructure based on max day, then what's that conversion? And so your local peaking factor is 1.5 times average day equals max day. And so what we're saying is that your base meter size, or your average residential customer, is going to use 309 gallons per max day. And so we want our fees based on that as our minimum threshold. And then as you get a larger meter, then you would pay incrementally higher for the water demanded. But it's basically a way to treat everyone the same and make sure that we can basically say, hey, this is our our EDU, or our per meter cost. So again, we're using master plan water figures and then adjusting them based on the peaking factors in the master plan. So are there any questions related to how we're coming up with any of those numbers? Okay. All right, so outlined in the master plan, over the next 10 years, it's projecting a max day increase of about 2.7 million gallons. So what we want to do is make sure that there's at least 2.7 million gallons worth of capacity for future development. So what we've done here is we said, okay, well, our wells, we know we have some extra capacity, but we also know that we need to construct well number 10. So what we've done is we've said, okay, the value of our existing wells is about $10 million. We plan to build well number 10, that's $2.75 million. So the total cost of what future development can buy into, for this capacity is about $12.7 million. Well, that's almost 21 million gallons of capacity. So all we're doing is taking the cost and dividing it by the capacity. That way we get a weighted average, because we know, you have some excess capacity today, and it was less expensive for you to build those wells than it will be to build well 10. And so it wouldn't be fair for us to charge future development based on that more expensive well if there's available capacity. So we're basically just getting a weighted average cost of all the capacity that they could buy into. And so we're saying, for every gallon of water related to wells that future development needs, they should be charged 61 cents. And so based on that 10-year increase of about 2.7 million gallons, this would generate about $1.6 million of revenue over the next 10 years to be used for the purchase of additional wells. The next component we have would be the storage and booster stations. Again, this is a plan-based component. So we use a very similar methodology where we say, all right, your existing storage and booster stations, they have a value of about $8.8 million to build the Northridge storage and booster station. That's going to be almost $4 million. So, again, we're going to take that total cost of existing and planned capacity, which is about $12.7 million, and just divide it by the available capacity of about 13.8 million. So again, future development should pay 92 cents per gallon related to the storage and booster stations. And based on 10 years of projected demand, that's about $2.5 million related to storage and booster stations. And then the distribution and transmission component, again, this is a plan-based component. With this, we've actually said, okay, here are our 4 projects that we're looking to construct. We know that part of this, is going to benefit existing development. So you'll see that we have a total cost of all those planned projects of $7.75 million, but the growth-related share of that is actually about $3.5 million. So we're basing this component of the fee on $3.5 million for that, essentially 2.7 million gallons of capacity. So for distribution and transmission, future development should pay $1.30 per gallon. So when you add all those components up, future development should pay $2.83 per gallon, and we're saying that the base meter or a single family dwelling demands 309 gallons per day. So $2.83 times 309 gallons per day gives you a proposed fee of $874. Your current connection fee for a single family home is $2,500. And so you can see that actually all of these proposed water fees represent a decrease compared to your existing connection fees. And I alluded to this earlier, as we go to larger meter sizes, those larger meters can, take more water. And so as the meter size increases, the fee actually increases as well, because those larger meters, they can take more water, so they should pay a proportionately higher water fee. So are there any questions related to the water fees? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to wastewater. So for wastewater, we looked at the billing data, and so the average residential customer generates 170 gallons of wastewater per day. So this is going to be our residential or base meter assumption is 170 gallons per day, and based on the recent growth of customers and then the actual projections within the city limits that we did in the development fees, we're saying that over the next 10 years, when you apply these wastewater generation factors to the projected development, that you would see an increase of about 750,000 gallons in wastewater flows. So basically, again, we want to make sure that we have that much capacity available to future development in the form of infrastructure. So the treatment facilities, with this one, we're doing a cost recovery. So we're actually looking at the total plant investment related to Hilltop and downtown is about $54 million. That provides about 5.7 million gallons of capacity. So future development should pay $9.47 for each gallon of capacity that they need. So based on 10 years of wastewater flows, that's about $7.1 million in projected revenue before we give it credit for debt service. So you'll see that on the next slide. But again, we're saying the growth-related need for this existing capacity is about $7.1 million. The next component would be the Interceptor Facilities. So with this, these are all growth-related interceptors. And so, they have a total, cost of about $11.8 million. You divide that by the 10-year increase in wastewater flows. So it's about $15.70 per gallon that future development should pay for Interceptor Facilities. I alluded to this earlier, the wastewater revenue credit. We want to make sure that we're not charging future development twice for the wastewater facilities or the treatment facilities. So what we're doing is we're just saying, hey, we know that you have debt related to this. It's included in your rates. So we want to go ahead and just give a credit for what future development would pay through the rates. So essentially what we're saying is that based on your future debt service payments and our projection of wastewater flows and the discount rate, that we should be giving a credit of $6.15 per gallon related to the future revenues generated by your wastewater rates related specifically to the treatment facilities. So again, the fee schedule, we add each component. And so after deducting the revenue credit, we're saying that you should charge $19.02 per gallon, and assuming 170 gallons per day, a base meter or a single family meter would pay $3,233. So currently you assess the fees per fixture, but shifting this to a per meter makes the comparison a little harder. So the average single family dwelling right now is paying for about 16 fixtures, and at $91 per fixture, the current single family wastewater development fee is about $1,500. So we are looking at an increase in the proposed wastewater fees compared to the existing fee. But you couple that with the decrease on the water side, and there's actually only a very slight increase. And so, assuming a single family fee, currently they would pay just under $4,000. And with these proposed water and wastewater fees, they would pay just over $4,100. So an increase of about $150. So are there any questions on any of the calculations or the fee summaries? Okay, so the final slide, this is a potential timeline. So tonight is just a recommendation from the commission, and then it's planned right now, September 7th, the notice of intention with the city council. You'd have to wait 60 days after that before you can have the actual public hearing on the capacity fees, which will be November 16th. And then if adopted on that date, the fees could become effective on December 20th. Again, that's my final slides. So I'm available for any questions or, if you have any comments, answer any of that.
We have comments from any of the board members?
Yes. Does anybody know when the last time the fees were raised?
Thank you, Commissioner Orr. So 2009 was the last time that the sewer investment fees were raised. And when we repealed our water development fees, we then called them the water connection fees, and they have not been changed since 2012. They have been at the same level.
I'd like to ask Tina just one more thing, and I tell you what, it really goes to, this is a new report. This is something that's being presented that, unless I misunderstood what we were presented, we're going to increase fees. Now, we just went through the budget. We just went through where you told us everything was in good shape. We have emergency money up there. We have emergency money for the sewer plant. We have capital improvements all programmed and everything in there. Now, this report is great, and it's a good way to do something if you want to do it. However, it is a report. It's a new report suggesting a way to do that. What we had before, the last time we went through the budget and everything was voted on. It went to city council. All of the budgets were approved, and I think the question I'm really wanting to ask you, are we having troubles with our departments that we don't know about?
Thank you, Chairman, for asking that question. And no, we do not. So when we look at the fees that we're charging for new development, we don't just look at can we meet our expansion projects for the next 5 years. As Ben shared, this is a 10-year look. And if you look at some of the projects on the wastewater side that are listed for the interceptors, those are projects that aren't even on our 5-year capital plan. And so we need to be sure that we're charging new development for the capacity that they're using and have the monies in place to pay for all of those projects over the next 10 years. Now, wastewater fees are increasing, but if you notice, the water fees are actually decreasing pretty significantly, more than in half. And so on that flip side, new development is benefiting from that because we reevaluated and said, okay, new development really is using this capacity and not what we have had in place for all of those years. And so we need to be fair for those as well. So instead of using connection fees to pay for those projects, it needs to come from rate revenue or a different funding source, and we shouldn't assess those fees onto the development community. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, from what I heard, what we're doing here is some of our capital improvement projects, we're speeding them up, and we're speeding them up by generating more money to speed them up. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
Okay.
So again, the projects that are included in this report are for 10 years to make sure that over a 10-year period, we're assessing the correct amount of money. We only have a handful of those projects on our 5-year CIP. So we want to make sure that over that 10 years, we can pay for all of those projects. That new development is paying for those projects.
Okay. I have to apologize because I didn't hear all of that.
Okay.
I'd like to ask 2 questions. What does this do to residential users for sewer and water for a regular user? What's it going up?
$151 if they connect to both of the systems.
So in other words, the monthly bill for a person, is that what you're telling us? No, you're not.
I'm saying it's going to go up when they initially connect to the sewer and initially connect to the water system. So a brand new home, when they come in and connect, is going to cost them $151 one time. It's an increase of $151. We are still reviewing that. It's exactly the same as it's been for quite some time. We are still undergoing that rate study. We have not brought anything to the commission in quite some time. We're reevaluating that, and we'll bring that back to you.
I think we all agreed last time that we went through the budget that we have to keep all of this stuff up. And I don't have a problem with that. I am kind of an advocate about not increasing fees. But if the fees are justified and it's to keep the systems up, I don't think it's all that bad a deal. I'm going to be quiet if anybody else would like to.
Thank you, Chairman.
Because these projects weren't in the budget that we had a few months ago, right?
Some of the projects were, but not all of them.
Yeah.
That's correct. Because it's a 10-year look, and we only look at 5 years when we put together our CIP. That's correct.
And that actually seems like a palatable, reasonable amount of money. At first, I was not really in favor of this, having just implemented impact fees. And so, put us all in. I'm sure the building permit fees are going to go up soon also. That hasn't increased in a while, so there's another hit to the cost of the house. But having said that, $151, I don't think that's gonna probably kill the deals.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And I've got one other thing that's just a procedural thing. The money that's being generated from the connection fees and different things like that. I know the water money stays in the water department. Is this earmarked at all for what I would call capital improvements or getting more things built? Or is it just go in the general fund?
Meaning the new proposed fees earmarked for new development for the projects that are listed in this report. That is correct.
So whatever we generate here is gonna go into new development.
It is going to. Now, there's a portion of the wastewater fee that can go towards debt or go towards an expanded treatment facility, but it all stays in the wastewater fund, and it all goes towards growth or paying off the treatment facilities.
I'm having problems seeing all the numbers this far away and stuff. We used to be able to get a
It's in
pamphlet
the,
of it. It was not, I didn't get it.
It's all online.
Yeah, so,
We're not printing the whole packets anymore.
right, and I wasn't aware of that. If I'd have realized that this whole packet would have been in there, I would open it up and looked a little more, so, but there's a lot of numbers in here that are, I mean, we're increasing a lot of stuff, so I would just,
by the time you print all these packages for all the commissioners and the city council and everybody else, it's got to be quite a printing cost. But if you could email them to us, and if we want to print them ourselves, we could do that. Because, yeah, also, I can't see the numbers either, and
so, Melinda,
not-
you did email those, right? Yeah. I believe in the agenda packets that were emailed earlier this week, all of the information for all of the items today were.
Just click the link when the agenda comes across, it should be blue, and it'll take you directly to whatever's on the agenda.
okay.
I apologize for that, Commissioner. I didn't realize that.
But we can absolutely just email the attachment separately too.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that helps me open it up and look at it, so.
I have a question on the credits. Can we go back to that slide?
Sure.
and
Ben, do you want to
revisit?
go back to the wastewater rate revenue credit slide?
Just a second to zoom back out. All right, there we go. Can
So
everyone
I
see
believe
that?
it was mentioned that they're part of this money will go back towards credits for developers? Is that,
No, this credit is related to the wastewater treatment facility debt that you're actually, part of your monthly rates are actually going to retire debt. So this is to make sure that we're not charging, once for the capacity fee and then a second time through the rates. So it's basically just reducing the capacity fee proportionately to offset any future rate revenue related to the wastewater treatment facility debt.
Vice Chairman, are you talking about the slide where we talked about the types of credits that would be issued?
yes.
Okay. Ben, can
Okay,
you go back to the
got it.
beginning there? Yeah.
Yeah, so a site-specific credit. So if a developer built one of the interceptors or a developer built a well or any of the storage, they would be entitled to a credit because they built something that was specifically outlined in the report. And so they should not be charged for that. but it would have to be something that we specifically included. They couldn't just build, an interceptor to their development project and say, oh, well, we want to get a credit for that. Because it has to be one of the interceptors that, we included. They couldn't build, future well number 11 because we didn't include that. It was well number 10. So it does have to be something that's included in the list of projects.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
We have any other discussion? All right, can we have a motion either for or against?
I'll make a motion to recommend that the city council adopt a notice of intent to hold a public hearing on the proposed water and wastewater capacity fees.
I'll second it.
We have a motion with the second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Passes. Okay. The next item is a request for a variance of overhead power line on 415 South 2nd Street. Do we have staff? Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Eric Sparkman, Assistant City Engineer. Phil could not be here tonight, and being the dedicated assistant I am, I agreed to fill in at a moment's notice, so please bear with me as I struggle through the presentation. So here's an aerial image of the subject property located at Gold Road and 2nd Street. As shown in the image, there was an existing house. This house has been recently raised, so the property is considered vacant. The electric service for this parcel is now considered a new service connection. As stated in Section 9-5 of the Kingman Municipal Code, all secondary lines and service drops shall be underground with the connection of any new service. The service for this parcel can utilize an existing power pole located at the northeast corner of the site, right near where this water meter symbol is shown, and it'd be a short distance to underground to the property. With that being said, and it's considered a new service connection, staff recommends denial for the overhead service variance request. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
We've had 2 or 3 of these come before the board in the last 6, 8 months. And one of the things that always come up, and that was always asked, is there a preponderance of overhead services or underground services in that area?
There was a majority of overhead services. There's one new underground in the area, I believe, and it was because a mobile home was replaced. So the majority of the connections now are all overhead. But those are probably, something from the past that were, constructed prior to this being adopted.
How are the houses in that area are, and what I'm asking specifically is the overhead services, are they likely to be there for a long time?
Yes, most likely.
Have you got any kind of idea as far as the cost? I know this is not germane to this, but do you have any idea as far as the cost of going underground, as far as just swinging the service over to it?
I don't know what the cost difference would be. Going underground would have several variables. Is it rocky? Is it easy digging and stuff that I'm not able to answer.
Okay. Can you tell me how far underground they'd have to go?
Well, I'm not sure where the new house electric location would be, or the house location would be, but as I mentioned, the overhead pole is currently right at the northeast corner where they could connect to.
You have any other comments?
I'm looking at some pictures here. Do you have the ability to pull these pictures up that we're looking at?
I believe these photos were provided by the applicant, Deborah Sasser.
Right, they were right.
Gotcha, okay.
So, and she's in attendance as well.
Okay,
Would like to
I'm looking at the top two pictures and I see red on the ground, red paint, which signifies underground power. And I'm just curious as to where this underground power is in relation to the lot in question.
That is a good question. It's hard for me to tell by the orientation of the photo exactly where this is at. The applicant might have better information.
Would that be okay at this time to hear from the applicant?
Yes, if there's no further questions from me, sure.
I don't know the etiquette about how to address everybody, but my name is Deborah Sasser, and yes, I bought this property in October, and unfortunately, because of extreme drywood termite damage, I couldn't renovate it like I wanted to. It was my passion to renovate it, so I had to raise it. The original electrical power was connected right to the house itself, so I couldn't just leave it there. I had to abandon it. And we're in the process of making sure that the drainage drains to the wash right now, and in the process of doing that, the white that you see on the top two pictures is caliche, and we can't go any deeper in that for the drainage purposes, so that's one of the reasons those top two pictures are there. The red mark is paint, it's paint from my dirt mover, not from electrical services, so there's no electrical on the property. That is the property line. So he painted it so that it'd be obvious where the property line is. And the house would have a 20-foot setback from 2nd Street, plus it's 32 feet long, so or the length of it. So the pole would be halfway down the house, so that's 35 feet. And per the engineer from Unisource, we would have to dig at least 27 inches into the ground. So we'd have to go 27 inches from that pole, which is thankfully right there by the property line. It's a little over, but pretty much there. But go 27 inches for 35 feet to get to where the pole would be. And because of the extra cost of the dirt work and because of the trenching and the piping for that much length, that is why I'm requesting a variance for overhead. And he's right. The other pictures are more to show that every single house there is overhead. It's not that I like overhead, but mine would come right down the property line, right nice and straight to a pole instead of just zigzagging, because there's a lot of that going on down there too.
Do you have a cost difference in your overhead and your underground?
I don't, but I know that the overhead would just, there wouldn't be no cost because it's the pole and the main. And so it's just having Unisource bring the wire over, so there's no cost. Whereas the underground, I don't have a cost of that. But it's got to be more than $500 because that's what I paid to have this application come in.
Do you think that, and I assume you're going to build it, this isn't going to be yours, you're building for resale, is that right?
Oh, no. I moved here to live in that house.
Okay.
I had no intentions of demolishing it. I had every intention of bringing it back to life, but I wanted to do it properly, and I knew that I was going to have to change out every single door, every single window, all the electrical, because there was no ground in it. I had to redo the sewer, the water, even the gas lines, and I was still okay with that. But when I gutted, because I spent Saturdays and Sundays for a month and a half gutting the kitchen and the bathroom myself, and we had to try to put in new floor joists. There was nothing to attach it to because the studs were like mush. You just couldn't tell it till you had, exposed it. So that's like 75% of the lumber, and at that point, there's no point, And unfortunately, like I say, the original service was attached to the house, so it wasn't on a pole, it was, attached. So, I had to have Unisource completely disbanded, whereas all the rest of the utilities are still there.
Question I'm really wanting to ask, if it doesn't cost $2 a month for 35 feet, if you want to go ahead and get a cost on it and look at it yourself, especially if it's your house.
It
where
is.
You don't have an overhead line on the thing, you might decide you want to do that anyway.
Well, it's in the back of my house, so I've arranged it so that the back of my house is on the north side. And even though my door will be on the east side so that I can keep my address, because I understood that if I changed the door to the south, I would actually be on Gold Road instead of South 2nd Street. And I'm kind of partial to the fact that I already thought I was on 2nd Street and I want to kind of stay there, kind of thing. So, and I like the setbacks. I like the setbacks so that I only had I'll do an 8-foot, but it's a 5-foot setback from the north side, which is the side I don't want to enjoy anyway. I want to enjoy the view of nothing on the south side. So I won't be looking that direction. There's hardly any, I don't even know if I have windows that direction. I know I have a back door. So I won't see it. It'll be along the property line. It won't be in the way. And so I already have the most expensive lot on the south side of the tracks because I was buying a house. And I'll have probably the double investment in that property that any place is worth down there. But I want to live there, and but I don't want to add to it even $3,000 to $5,000 just because it'd be aesthetically better for somebody. And I don't think it would actually add aesthetically to that too much because, if you're crossing a lot, it's ugly. But this is right down the side, and Brandon Turner owns the house next to mine, which actually Unisource thought they were disconnecting the wrong house because that one looks like it needs to be demolished. But anyway, he will be remodeling it, redoing it sometime, and even then it'll be on the side of that house. So, so it'll be nice and square.
Okay, but you don't want to do that for yourself.
No, because I won't even look on that side of my house. That's why I wanted the least amount of setback on that side, because I don't want to waste my time on that side of the house.
All right, you've answered the question.
Sorry, long answer, sorry.
Does anybody else have any comment?
I think since looks like the standard for the neighborhood is overhead service, it would really be my suggestion to let her go ahead with the overhead service since that's what everybody else has. I mean, if she was the only overhead in the neighborhood, I'd say it'd be different, but.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Toby, I didn't hear all of that, but basically what you just said is because everything else pretty well is going overhead, you think that that's okay?
Yeah, yes,
Is that
I do.
correct?
Yes.
I think the last one that came before us, over half the area was underground. That's why it was an issue versus all overhead.
Oh, and if it was all underground, I'd jump on that bandwagon too.
Yeah, no, that was the one that came before us before.
Oh, got it.
The most recent one. We've had a few,
Got it.
and a lot of them.
Okay, I don't want to hurry things along. We've still got a couple more things to do. Does anybody want to make a motion for or against this right at this time?
I'll make a motion that we allow the overhead, or it can go back to whoever for approval.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. Basically what it says is that we're going to allow the overhead service for this house. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes carry. It'll go back to say, like, I'm not sure where the work goes back. Engineering department.
And it goes back to city council to vote on.
City council.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the next item. sewer variance request for Pasadena Estates. We have staff.
Please bear with me 1 second. I'm having problems finding my imagery.
I'm gonna make just one comment while you're looking there. Tell you the truth, I don't see a packet anywhere with anybody in here. So I think it was a nice request if we might be able to find a place to get them.
I found it, so yeah, here we go. There we go. Okay, sorry for the delay. So this is a proposed subdivision at the southwest corner of Pasadena and Sage. The proposed subdivision will create 30 residential lots with a minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet. As specified in the utility regulations, no new subdivision will be allowed a water connection without providing a sanitary sewer connection to each lot. There are several options to bring a sewer to this site. The first being from the north. In Airfield, the line in green is an existing sewer main, so it could be extended south, either down Sage, which is adjacent to state land, or the roadway to the west, which is Apache Drive. The distance for that extension is about 2,700 feet. The other option, which could not be shown on this aerial exhibit, would be going from the south, connecting into Central Avenue, and that distance would be roughly 3,800 feet to provide sewer to this subdivision. The subdivision has been brought to muck on 2 prior occasions. A sewer variance was presented at the muck meeting in March of 2016. That sewer variance was denied by a vote of 5-0. In September of 2016, muck approved a water service agreement to provide water to the subject parcel. The water service resolution that was approved by council specified that both water and sewer lines would be required to be extended in accordance with the utility regulations. Engineering and Public Works are not in favor of granting a sewer variance. It is per our code that all subdivisions shall connect to a sewer system. Any questions?
That first option of shorter length, is that 4+ paved streets?
A portion of it might be. The majority of it is in dirt. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure if Apache Drive is paved. Travin would probably know better than.
Apache and Yavapai, you mentioned an option. The only option in dirt would be to get
That would be the sage.
That's the straight line distance, that's the easy
Yeah.
one, right? But we don't have it. When we wanted to go, we talk about unicorns because we don't have that.
Eric,
Yeah.
he needs to be in, so we can catch him. We can hear him. He needs to come up, trap.
Trap needs to come up.
Oh. Thank you.
I'd be happy to answer your questions, but is it appropriate to give maybe the short story, like of how we got here? And I think context is important sometimes. So before I came to work at Engel Homes, Doug Engel approached, I believe was Carl Wright and Donna Wright are the owners of this property. We don't own this piece of property. Doug negotiated an option on this piece of property to be able to come and go work out issues, things like preliminary plats, and agreed on a price to pay the rights. So that process kind of, sewer's not to the site, and usually that vetting process you kind of figure out in the preliminary plat process, right? You hire a local engineer, they figure out where the utilities are, where the gas lines are, what the zoning is, and you kind of, and we did that. We have an approved preliminary plat that we've renewed every 2 years. There's a requirement to renew that. We did that, and in that process, very early on, sewer wasn't there. Sewer was going to be expensive. So I think that 2016 MUC meeting was about like an early reflex to say, there's no sewer here, right? It's going to be, so I think at that time, we came to MUC. I think at that same meeting, I think Tina Moline made a presentation right before that agenda item about like the need to expand sewer services, how we have this sewer project that needs this expansion project, sewer treatment facility that needs to be paid for, and we need to get as many paying customers. So this was kind of almost to follow that presentation with, hey, we want to have a subdivision and get out of sewer. It was kind of dead on arrival is what my take on that, not being at Engel Homes. So I come along, 17, 18, I'm hired by Doug, and he's asked me to figure out what we can do with this, right? I'm optimistic. I'm thinking, oh, the economy's getting better. Maybe the estimate back then was like about $70,000 to do per lot, to do everything associated, running the sewer, doing all of that, and it's a big number, especially a couple of years ago. It was a big number. So we considered going back to MUC. We considered a rezone. One of the things that we could possibly do is if you doubled the amount of lots, went from 1 acre lots to half-acre lots, we could, maybe that's the ticket, right? And then, you reconsider that. Like, there's a lot of people that we all know in this community that have homes, have built custom homes and have large homes in that area. And we decided that was probably dead on arrival also. A rezone in this particular instance would be a really sensitive topic and probably not going to fly. And you guys could probably agree with that. Knowing some of the personalities and kind of what we're talking about. So we've paid Donna Wright some option money, and we owe her a sum of money, and we've been trying to figure this out. I think we've taken the appropriate steps. We've kind of exhausted some of the other ideas that we've here recently repriced this out, and these would be $80,000 lots. Our cost would be $80,000, I think, and some change to construct these lots. It'd be different if it was 5 lots. Maybe you could take the risk of being a little bit too deep but to take 31 acre lots, it might take a long while to be able to sell those. And so this is kind of, I hate to use the word last ditch effort, is we would like to do this and build this subdivision, but with the cost of the sewer, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's a lot of risk, right? I hope 6 months from now, everything here is amazing and going great, but I've been around, I've seen a couple of these. And so it's a big financial risk for us to take on a project like this and just with reckless abandonment. So I believe that's what one of the essence of why this commission exists. We did go do our homework and we tried really hard to come up with a different solution, and we're back here. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Try to keep it short and sweet.
Pretty quick there. Paybacks. Were you running, I believe it was 2,700 feet.
Just, I believe it's way more than, I think there is a distance that you can measure that is exactly what Eric measured. But for this particular instance, I believe that number is, and I sent an email, I believe it is closer to like 3,800 feet is the sewer manhole that we're gonna connect to. I don't want to embarrass myself trying to pick it. I believe it's 3,800 feet away, and it's to the north of this, and I believe it possibly at airfield, but irregardless.
Okay, let me ask that in a different direction. If you went ahead and extended the sewer, what other properties were developed along the way? And can any of them being subdivisions, that when they hook onto it, what kind of payback agreement is there? And what type of fees could you possibly recoup?
There's very few, most of the properties that we would be passing are developed 1 acre plus lots. So there, I counted about 6 or 7 parcels that we would be passing that could possibly recoup.
But no subdivisions?
No, we're not passing any subdivisions to get to this point. It's all developed out. There's no commercial parcels. It's developed land. And almost 100% of it is cutting streets and going over and to and through existing utilities at water lines. And so it's not just as simple out in the desert putting in a sewer line. It's quite complex.
Yes. We have some questions? Toby?
I'll say if everything was black and white and the rules were followed to a T on every situation, we wouldn't need this commission. Just follow the rules and we wouldn't have to spend our time coming to these meetings. But having said that, I think this is a tailor-made case where we really need to consider the alternatives. And I think the alternatives, the one alternative I see, is nothing ever being built there, in my lifetime anyway. Possibly if it were rezoned for smaller lots, you could apportion the cost out to more lots. But that's probably next to impossible. I've seen some of these zoning battles in this area that it just would not happen. I don't think it would be possible to rezone this. So, given the options, if this is denied, what is Angle Homes going to do?
Yeah, and I had a long conversation, and not one that brought me pleasure at all, with Donna today, kind of explaining, like, if we're not successful here, we don't want to waste any of her time. We're not going to put up any additional option monies to try to explore different options. We're just going to cut our losses on this one and give her land back. And part of that conversation is, I think if we've looked at it and exhausted everything, I don't know that somebody's going to come right behind us and find anything different. And so hopefully that answers your question.
So, if I was on the city staff, and I was looking at this strictly from a monetary standpoint, if there were 30 homes that were built out and they were on septic tank, I think the city would still benefit from the impact fees, the water hookup fees, sales tax on construction, the permit fees. And if there was ever a bond passed where a bonding district was set up, you'd have more people paying the district. The city doesn't have any property tax, true, but if the bond issue brought up, then there's more people to pay into it. So I would think that would be the benefit to the city. By doing this, if we deny this, probably nothing's gonna happen, zero. That I can see, I don't know, prove me wrong, somebody tell me I'm wrong.
One quick question, parcel 311-22-003, that's just, if I looked up correctly before, that was just an individual, it's not a subdivision. It's just a parcel someone owns, it has nothing to do with this, so that's not gonna be developed either anytime soon.
Let's see, so this parcel here?
Yeah,
Potentially, it is a parcel, you know, I'm not sure the ownership or
But
anything
they'd have
like
to go
that.
through a whole process to get it subdivided and all that and do that. And
Correct.
it could be 20 years from now because it's already
Correct.
been things out there.
And, you know, I guess one of the things we're concerned at is setting a precedence. So we allow a subdivision to come in, not be required to follow the ordinance, which is to provide sanitary sewer facilities. You know, we want people to connect. We spend a lot of money on our treatment plants. Maybe people are gonna wanna rezone to bigger lots now because they don't have to connect. I mean, what's gonna stop people from going to the other extreme? In our eyes, it just needs to be something that's applied consistently. And this, you know, this is our utility regulation requirement, but all subdivisions connect.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Anyway, I'd like to
Mr.
address that a second. I think we just approved one for England Homes. So I don't think this is a first precedent, if it goes that way, and I'm not saying it was. Now, England Homes had a problem because we had lift stations in there. This one is just flat. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. If we go ahead and do the subdivision, compared to us all go home and not do nothing, the impact and what would happen with the city, I think would far outweigh anything that wouldn't. And I don't believe that this would set a precedent. We already have one.
Well, the Bob England was a little bit different situation. There was a wash there. The topography was not inducive to doing a gravity sewer line. So I think that kind of came into play on that one. Although I wasn't here at the meeting, I am familiar with that.
He had several engineers come in and present forced mains, and forced mains, nobody wanted them.
No, we don't like them either.
So we went ahead and approved alternative systems for that area. And as a result, it's being built, the city's profiting from it. In this particular case, you never know exactly how the thing's gonna end up. But if it all dies and just goes home, city doesn't make a quarter, and it doesn't grow. And I'm very pro-growth in a controlled basis. And if it's all gonna just die, we might wanna look at it.
Well, I agree, and I have all the confidence in your, whatever decision is made, so.
I think.
Mr. Chairman, could
yeah.
I have the floor for a moment?
Yep.
Hello. Okay. This is Rob Owen. I'm the Public Works Director. And maybe I can just provide a little bit of background on kind of how we got where we are as far as the requirement that all new subdivisions, be sewered. And that was a pretty intensive discussion from a previous council. I think there was a lot of public input. And I think it kind of is even more critical now with our the current status of our aquifers. The infiltration of all this industrial agriculture in the area. These are important topics for us for the long term. And, council approved this requirement that all subdivisions be on sewer. Council formed the Water Sustainability Task Force, which is this joint group between the city and the county to try to, marshal our efforts together to try to, come with or end up with the best outcome for long-term water sustainability. And a big factor of that, and it's been, a focus of our capital improvement plans for years, is to get the most people on the sewer system that we can. And, the ultimate use of our effluent out at the treatment plant is going to be recharge of our aquifers to sustain our groundwater, going forward. So I guess I do have the concern that this would set a precedent You know, we've spent, between the city and the county, we spent a lot of effort and a lot of money trying to shore up our groundwater supplies for the long term. And the concept of getting all new subdivisions on sewer is a big component of that. So I guess I just wanted to kind of give some of that background that, you know, this isn't just some bureaucratic rule or regulation. I mean, this is a part of our long-term strategy to try and ensure the water sustainability for the Kingman community going into the future. And, you know, it's very important to us. And like I say, the city and the county both have spent a lot of time, effort, and resources to try to ensure that. And in my view, anyway, making sure that new subdivisions are on sewer is a big part of that. So that's all I had. Thank you.
I'm sorry, do you want to come up and speak?
Travis again. I would like to, I don't disagree with anything Rob said there, right? And I think we all understand the benefit of having a community that hooks, great if 100% can hook to sewer, right? This isn't an anti-sewer, it's just really expensive, and I think numbers matter. I think since the rule that requires all subdivision in the city of Kingman to be connected to sewer, there's been no 1 acre lots subdivisions built. We're running out of 1 acre lots. And I think something we're not talking about, but it kind of brings some bigger context, is 1 acre lots are pretty expensive to run sewer to. There's a lot more distance, but we're not talking about the other requirements to do sidewalks and curbs on 1 acre lot. Those are real expensive too. We're setting those arguments, those are part of this equation, whether this works or doesn't work, and we're not arguing about those. It's the sewer right now this is the hindrance of this project, and I think it makes economic sense. I don't think there's a really big economic benefit to the city of Kingman to have us make this malinvestment. I feel like it would be a malinvestment on Engleholm's part to spend the money doing this. And so I do believe that parcel will sit for a long, long time as it is, and maybe that's what we decide. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Regarding Rob Owen's comment, I know the septic tanks are, in a lot of circles, kind of a bad idea, but we do have a whole state regulatory agency that controls septic tanks, and that's really not really in the city's purview that I see. State and county regulatory agents on septic tanks. So if they say the septic tanks are okay, the perk test passed and everything, then they must be okay. I do have an aside here. I have a friend developing a 1 acre lot subdivision outside of Kingman. He's hoping we deny this because it makes his lots more valuable. More people building outside the city. So having said that, I just think the city is, I don't know, you get nothing or you get all the fees we were just talking about. Sales tax, permits, water fees, water meter fees. That's really all I have. Other than the fact, yes, we are setting a precedent. And it can be said that everybody now that wants to develop a subdivision is going to try to get out of putting in sewers. Maybe so, but that's what this commission is for. We make that determination on whether or not it's a valid reason or not. One other thing, and I'll shut up. I think the city is running out of land within the city limits. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not that much more land within the city limits. It won't be long. They're going to run out. I mean, somebody tell me I'm wrong, please. But from what I see, there's just not that much raw land inside the city limits, and we're just pushing more development outside the city limits. So.
And I understand what the city's trying to say in controlling the subdivisions, but to me, when I look at how they want all subdivisions connected to the sewer, it'd be more something along where like White Cliffs is if they were developed there, or more like towards Long Mountain or those areas where there's already developments around it, and they're putting in new developments, not something like this where it's so far out that there's not gonna be another development that attaches to it, or a benefit by running a sewer there, because nothing else will be able to benefit from it in the long run. It's just one big trunk line to that actual development, and nothing is actually gonna feed off of it to get a benefit from it. So there's a little bit difference in what type of subdivision, or where, should I better say is where is the subdivision located? So to me, it's no different in a way than the overhead thing. It's like if they're all underground, that's what we're here for. And there's always exceptions, like things like this, where it doesn't fit a mold, where there's a reason to truly deny something.
Can I ask a question of the staff?
Yes, sir, if you mean me, yes,
So,
sir.
I've seen the location of the sewer on the north side, but you were unable to show us the location of the sewer on the south side because it wouldn't be captured in the screenshot?
Correct. I couldn't get the imagery to shrink down enough because it is about 3,800 feet south.
Okay.
Further south.
So footage to the north, we're looking at 2,700. Footage to the south, we're looking at around 3,800 roughly.
About 3,800.
So,
But it's, you know, by extending the sewer, it's opening up connection potential to, all these areas are currently on septic. So there's, you know, just by having a line within the vicinity, it opens up many more future connections that wouldn't be there.
that was kind of the point I was getting to, is by connecting sewer to this subdivision, proposed subdivision, would help bridge the gap in between the north and the south sewer lines.
Yes.
And it would help fill in this area with the potential to connect to the city sewer.
Correct.
And help fund future projects and maintenance costs.
Yes, it would open that area up to future connections. As you mentioned, you know, paybacks could be put in place, even though these are on septic, but if their septic fails, they would have to connect. The paybacks are based on lot frontage. So if it's 1 acre lot, you got a lot of frontage that could potentially, you know, help offset the cost of extending the sewer to the developer.
And how long are these paybacks valid for? I mean, is there a 5-year shelf life, 10 years?
20 years.
20 years. So within the next 20 years, if anyone develops and ties onto that sewer that they put in, they are eligible for a payback for the
Yes.
footage of that lot.
Correct.
And to touch on Commissioner Orr's comments of running out of land in the city, potentially that area could develop those other vacant lots because there is no more land, especially the acre lots. So there's, once that sewer comes in, there is potential that some of those other large vacant lots get developed
Yeah.
to tie onto that sewer.
You know, I've been in the city of Kingman approximately 4 years. To me, there's a lot of available land coming from the Flagstaff area and the Prescott area. So there's still quite a bit of developable properties.
Yeah. I'm torn. I understand the need to make a profit. You know, I mean, what business operates without making a profit? But at the same time, looking at future needs of the city and future development and infrastructure, I also see that aspect too. And so I understand both sides and both arguments.
Okay. And I just like we're talking, I guess this is back.
You have to speak into the mic so it's recorded.
So, that large parcel there you can see where it's kind of been gridded out and maybe graded into like 1 acre grids.
Yes.
So let's count that as 7 or 8 lots there that could potentially hook onto this sewer. This sewer is not going to go up north of here or south of here and connect to anything. If you look at the next main street on the other side of our subdivision, the other side of Louise, you go up, the next main street to the south is Southern.
Mm-hmm.
From Southern that way, it's already on a sewer trunk line. That's all of Southern Vistas that we've developed. So there's no, this idea that somebody upstream is going to connect on this. Let's look at a GIS map. That argument doesn't fly. Now, the vague concept of putting in sewer lines and somebody upstream can connect to them, but not in this instance. So I just didn't necessarily agree with that. That was a great argument. So.
Yeah, like I said, I can't see the south portion of the map where the sewer line is,
Right.
or what has been developed on the south side. I'm just purely looking at what I can visually see on the screen.
This is kind of an important subject, so I don't want to hurry anybody. And if we have any more comments or discussion, I would certainly recommend bringing it up. There's two sides to this. It's kind of how you feel development should be. I, again, am pro-growth. And as far as benefits to the city, if we have to give and take a little bit, if we don't, I honestly believe that's going to sit for an awful long time before any development's going to happen whatsoever. But I do agree with the city engineer that we did have a lot of problems with groundwater. We did have a lot of things. That's one of the main reasons we moved away from septic tanks. Hooking onto the sewer plant wasn't the only reason that that ordinance was passed. It was passed also because of, I believe it was the state health department come up here and checked our groundwater and made that recommendation that we stopped all septic tanks inside the city. The only thing is, if you can't hook to it, I believe, what is it, 800 feet? Right? Something like that, 700?
No, I think it's like 500.
500 feet.
It has to be.
Yeah, as far
As far as you think.
as somebody coming in there and building something, if they're 500 feet away from that, they're not required to hook up anyway. I'm gonna be like Toby, I'm gonna be quiet on it because I can certainly see both sides of this. And this is gonna be an interesting vote. Do we have any further discussion?
So I have a question now on the comment you brought up that a health official of some sort came in and recommended the halt of septic tanks.
Are you familiar with that report?
I'm sorry?
This had to do when the sewer plant was first built. They had to come in and check the aquifer. When they did that, there were several reports at that time, and I tell you the truth, I think that's when this ordinance was passed. They just said that, and I don't think 30 lots is going to make any difference, but they said at that time that the continuation of putting in high-density septic tanks would be detrimental to the groundwater. Now, since then, they have pretty well stopped it. And like say, anything within 500 foot, you're required to hook up. So if there's a sewer line in front of the street and you've had a septic tank for 20 years, you're going to hook up. Now, we come up with several different things that helped individual people as far as spending the money to do that. But yes, originally. But I tell you what, at that time, most of Kingman didn't have any sewer in it. And septic tanks were by far the biggest thing going. And we have successfully slowed that down to improve the groundwater. Now, as far as saying 30 tanks is going to ruin the groundwater, you've got, can you guys even make a guess at how many septic tanks inside the city are granted each year?
Not near as many as there used to be.
Yeah, I agree with that, but they are granted for anything more than 500 foot off, and repairs and all of that are made.
They are mostly due to topography where you cannot connect. Because you're working against grade or something similar like that.
Yeah, basically, it's not going to stop anyway. But as far as running as rampant as it did, no, once these ordinances was passed, it really slowed it down. Also, the repair of existing septic tanks when the sewer is available, we stopped all of that too.
Okay.
But to say, and I think he just alluded to that, to say there's not going to be any more, well, there's going to be more.
Roll call vote?
I
If you need somebody to make a motion, I'll make a motion.
This is a very expensive one.
I mean,
Toby, do you want to make a
if
motion?
it dies in lack of second, I understand. I mean, you know, there's, to me, it's healthy to have, but it's not necessarily healthy to have unanimous votes all the time. So, feel free to disagree with me, but I will make a motion, how to word this, that we accept the request from Angle Homes, which is actually Hogland Holdings, to waive the requirement to extend sewer to the new subdivision.
I'll second.
We have a vote and a second to grant the variance. And the variance would be septic tanks in that area without running the sewer. All right, we're going to call for a vote. All in agreement with this signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The variance is granted. It'll go to city council next, but it'll go with our recommendation. All right. Do we have any announcements by any of the commission members? Anybody want to ask staff for anything? Anything you want to bring up on the next agenda?
I think they left off the approval of the minutes from last.
So the minutes are not available for approval at this time.
Okay, so that's why. Okay, just making sure we didn't follow procedures.
I have one request from staff. If such a report exists out there that talks about the detriment to septic tanks, to our water supply, if that could be provided to us at our next meeting?
Sure.
Just one note that's kind of funny about septics, even though this isn't California, Malibu's all septic. People don't know that. And they tried taxing for years back in, when was it, mid to late 90s, for about 7 years. They had a little tax to put the sewer in. And then when they finally got enough money, a bunch of the residents sued and the whole money went to fight the lawsuit. So it's still on septic, the whole Malibu. So it's kind of, that whole coastline area in California, a lot of people don't realize Malibu, all that down there is all septic. So it's, even though it's Kingman and Malibu, it's different, but it's still a thing where septic is popular.
Yeah, I have
For some
nothing
things,
against
yeah.
it now.
Okay, do we have anything else that we'd like to have staff or anybody put on the next agenda? All right, the next rule will be, can I get a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.